Warriors, the enemy awaits! Ride with me to victory!
Imagine this: one day, one battlefield, and a single decision that could change the future of an entire continent. May 31st, 1223. Somewhere across the endless grasslands we now call Ukraine, nearly 80,000 soldiers are unknowingly marching toward a lesson that history will remember as one of its most brutal military warnings.
Forward, warriors! Aye!
The air is thick with dust, and within that dust lingers the sharp, metallic scent of iron and blood. Across the vast steppe, countless bodies lie scattered, like broken dolls, unable to move. The desperate cries of the dying slowly blend with the thunder of galloping hooves. Before the sun sets, nearly 9 out of every 10 of these warriors will fall to the ground. Their princes will be brutally crushed beneath a platform of victory, while Mongol commanders sit above it, calmly feasting. The few who survive will return carrying a terrifying warning, one that Europe will ignore for nearly 14 years until the danger is almost at the doorstep. But this is where the real question begins. How can a force of just 20,000 cavalry completely destroy an army 4 times its size? How can an enemy's confidence be used in such a way that it becomes the cause of their downfall? This is the story of a military trap that stands as one of history's closest examples of perfection. Here, pride collided with extraordinary strategy, and an entire civilization paid the price. Stay with me, because what you are about to learn will reshape how you think about war, strategy, and the thin line between hunter and prey. To understand how this disaster began, we need to go back 3 years in time, and we must travel nearly 5,500 miles away, across some of the harshest lands on Earth. The year is 1220. One of Central Asia's most powerful states, the Khwarezmian Empire, has just been reduced to ruins. Behind this devastation stood a man whose name shook the world, Genghis Khan. The Khwarezmian Shah made a terrible mistake. He had Mongol envoys executed.
The Empire's patience is at an end, says the conversant. We bow to no one! Our steel will answer your threats! So be it. Your defiance seals your fate.
And that mistake was answered with a calculated revenge that left an apocalyptic mark on history. Genghis Khan proved that making an enemy of the Mongols meant not just war, but a storm of total destruction. But while the great Khan was consolidating his newly conquered lands, 2 of his remarkable generals came forward with a different plan.
The storm is our ally. We march at dawn. The passes will be treacherous, my lord. Speed is our weapon. Flank from the east. It will be done. What of supplies? They follow.
They requested permission for a long campaign, what they described as a reconnaissance mission. The names of these 2 commanders were Jebi and Subutai. They were 2 of Genghis Khan's legendary 4 war dogs, the chosen commanders he trusted the most. Here, it's worth pausing, especially for Jebi's story, because his life story helps us understand how the Mongols fought, how they thought, and why their strategies were so devastatingly effective. And from here begins a journey that will ultimately lead to one of the most perfectly executed military traps in history. This story has a strange twist. The man we now know as a terrifying general of the Mongol Empire was once an enemy of Genghis Khan. The year is 1202. A brutal war is raging to unite the Mongol tribes. During that battle, an archer named Jerko Adai fired an arrow that struck Genghis Khan's horse directly. In an instant, the horse collapsed to the ground, throwing the Khan down with it. The battle ends with a Mongol victory. Afterward, Genghis Khan asks, who was the man bold enough to shoot an arrow at him?
Warriors, the battle is won, but our conquest is far from over. Yes, Khan! To the next horizon, for the glory of the Empire!
As everyone remains silent, Jerko Adai steps forward. In a calm voice, he admits, "Yes, I fired the arrow. You may kill me now if you wish."
My lord, the horde is ready. Then we ride. For the Khan!
But if you spare me, I will become one of your most loyal warriors. The courage and honesty of this confession deeply impressed Genghis Khan. Not only did he forgive him, he also gave him a new name, Jebe, meaning arrow.
Jericho Adai, your arrow struck true. For your valor I forgive you and grant you the name Jebe, the arrow. Rise.
I accept this honor, great Khan. I will be your arrow.
Soon after, he was appointed as a general of a military unit, and incredibly, within just 3 years, Jebe rose to a crucial position. During the invasion of Jin China, he commanded the left wing of the Mongol army. It was a rare example of promotion based purely on merit, something nearly unimaginable in that era. And this very system helped the Mongols expand their power rapidly. As a result, they managed to conquer vast parts of the known world.
Forward on my warriors, please!
Meanwhile, the story of another general is no less remarkable. His name was Subutai. Subutai was born into a humble family, the son of a blacksmith. He had no connection to royalty or noble blood, but his talent was extraordinary.
Brothers, the wind calls us to ride! Charge!
At just 14 years old, he joined the Mongol army. Before even reaching his 20s, he was given command of the vanguard, one of the most important and dangerous positions in battle. Genghis Khan referred to him as one of his legendary 4 war dogs, warriors capable of breaking through mountains to advance and crushing massive stones into dust. These 2 generals did not fight by conventional rules. They invented new tactics and never hesitated to take risks. Their understanding of warfare was remarkably deep. Even today, military historians remain amazed when studying it.
The enemy mass is here. We must strike now. Agreed, but our right flank is exposed. We can reinforce it with the cavalry reserve. Do it. Issue the orders. For victory.
So when they asked permission to move west beyond the Persian frontier, crossing the Caucasus toward the European steppes, Genghis Khan granted them that permission. What followed became one of the longest military campaigns in history, a campaign lasting nearly 3 years and spanning about 5,500 miles. They first advanced through Azerbaijan, then they defeated the Kingdom of Georgia twice. Each time they used their famous tactic, a feigned retreat, followed by a sudden pincer attack from both sides. In the Caucasus, they subdued the Alans and the Circassians. Then their attention turned to the Cumans, a Turkic nomadic people who controlled the vast western steppes. But the Cumans had little chance of surviving this conflict.
Warriors! The enemy is near! Mount up and ride with me!
After defeat, their Khan, Khotan Khan, made a difficult decision. To survive, he had to seek help, and hoping for aid, he fled to his son-in-law. That son-in-law was the Prince of Galicia, Mstislav the Bold. History remembers him by that very name, Mstislav the Bold. And true to his name, he was bold, decisive, and aggressive.
The enemy camps here. We strike from the east.
The path is treacherous, my lord.
We have surprise. Speed is our ally.
I'll ready the men at once.
Good. We march at dawn.
But perhaps he lacked something important, strategic patience and foresight.
Warriors, the time has come. Our enemies are divided, their forces scattered. We strike here and here. Victory will be swift. For honor and glory, prepare for battle.
And very soon, that small weakness would change the course of history. The shock of defeat had not yet faded. With the surviving fragments of his battered army, Khotan Khan arrived at the prince's court. He did not use elaborate words. His message was direct, cold, and terrifyingly clear. Today they took our land. Tomorrow they will come for yours.
Warriors of the court, the hour of reckoning is upon us. No longer can we delay. We march at dawn to defend our lands. Let the enemy tremble before our united strength.
This warning changed the entire direction of the story.
Warriors, hear me. Our enemies gather at the borders, but we stand united.
Let's return to the tense year of 1223. The message spread quickly. Eventually, an important council was called in Kiev.
The enemy approaches from the east. We must strike their flank here. Agreed. But we need cavalry to secure the pass. The cavalry will be ready. Signal the advance. It is decided.
At that time, Kievan Rus was not a unified state. It was a loose alliance of multiple principalities.
The enemy gathers. We must act. Our warriors are ready. We strike at dawn. The longships are prepared. Then it is settled. To victory.
Each region had its own prince. Each had its own interests and decisions.
Their forces are divided. We strike now, but supply lines are vulnerable. We must secure them first. Delay gives them time. Advance and cut them off. Agreed. Issue the orders.
On paper, they were loyal to the Grand Prince of Kiev, but in reality, they often chose their own path. They fought against external enemies. But conflicts among themselves were just as common. Politically, it was unstable and fragile.
The enemy outnumbers us. We must flank them through the pass. The pass is treacherous. What of the supply lines? Our scouts confirm the path is clear. Then we strike at dawn. No delays.
In early 1223, various princes gathered in Kiev. At first glance, the alliance seemed powerful.
My warriors, the time for action is upon us. We strike from the east, dividing their forces. A bold plan, my lord. We are ready. Then prepare. We march at dawn.
Mstislav the Bold brought his forces from Galicia. The Grand Prince of Kiev, Mstislav III, sent his army. Princes from Chernigov, Kursk and Volhynia also joined.
Soldiers, advance with courage!
Among them was Daniel of Galicia. And of course, the Cuman warriors led by Khotan Khan were there as well. In total, about 80,000 soldiers had gathered. Though impressive, the reality was different. Only a quarter to a third of them were experienced fighters. The rest were ordinary peasants who had suddenly been handed spears. And here lay the critical mistake. A mistake the two Mongol generals would exploit masterfully. They had ignored the most important thing, appointing a single supreme commander.
The enemy masses in the east. We must strike before they cross the river. A direct assault is reckless. Our forces are divided. Then we unite them. Flank from the north, as the maps show.
Each prince led his own forces. Each made his own decisions and moved according to his own plan. So despite its size, the army lacked unity. It was a collection of separate forces, almost like an armed council, where everyone speaks but very few truly lead.
The enemy is here. We must strike their flank. A bold move, but our forces are ready. Good. Advance the cavalry to draw them out. It will be done. For victory!
And history has shown again and again, structures like this often mark the beginning of disaster on the battlefield. April 1223. Around the great bend of the Dnieper River, the Rus armies slowly began to gather. Boats drifted in along the river, cavalry approached from the dusty horizon, and many soldiers arrived on foot at the gathering point. Day by day, the army swelled, becoming a massive force that from a distance looked almost unstoppable, as if no one in the world could possibly stop it. But at that very time, about 200 miles to the east, Mongol commanders Jebi and Subutai received news that the Rus were assembling a massive army. Their response? Not immediate battle preparations, rather, they sent envoys. The Mongol envoys arrived in Kiev with a proposal of peace. Their message was brief, yet carefully calculated.
Soldiers, the enemy gathers beyond our walls. Yes, Commander! We stand united. Our steel will hold this line. To your posts! For honor! My honor!
They said they had no conflict with the Rus. They were simply pursuing the Cumans, who were their enemies.
Warriors, the enemy is at our gates. We must stand firm.
We are ready, Commander!
Then fight with honor. For our homes and our king.
For honor! For the king!
They were moving eastward, away from Rus cities. There was no need for war. It sounded reasonable, an offer from which negotiations could have begun. But the decision that followed was very different. Grand Prince Mstislav III of Kiev ordered the execution of those envoys.
Warriors, the enemy approaches our gates. Will you stand with me? Aye, draw your swords. Let them taste our sanctuary.
This moment became a turning point in history.
Soldiers, the enemy gathers beyond these walls. Today, we fight for our homes.
Aye, Commander!
For glory, for the realm. Charge!
Charge!
Because the Mongols had used the same approach before with the Shah of the Khwarezmian Empire.
Warriors of the realm, the hour of reckoning is upon us. We stand ready, my lord. Advance and claim our destiny.
He too had executed Mongol envoys, and we know the result. His empire was almost erased from the map. The Mongols did not send envoys only in hope of peace. They were creating a moral and political justification that, in their view, legitimized the war that would follow.
The enemy mass is here. We must strike now. Agreed, but our supply lines are vulnerable. We flank them at dawn. Issue the orders. It will be done. We march at first light.
In Mongol belief, killing envoys was a grave crime. It meant that the destruction to come would be seen not as revenge, but as justice. And in that moment, unknowingly, Mstislav seemed to place an invisible target over every Rus city.
Soldiers, the enemy gathers at our walls. We must stand firm. Ready your arms. We march at dawn to meet them. For our city and our people!
A few days later, the Mongols sent envoys again. This time, the message was no longer diplomatic, it was a declaration. The war had begun. Then Jebi and Subutai moved to the next phase of their plan. And from here, the true brilliance of their strategy began to reveal itself. They positioned their main force, about 20,000 cavalry, to the east. But at the same time, they left behind a small unit of only 1,000 soldiers, led by an officer named Hammerbek. Think about it for a moment. If an army of 80,000 stood before you, would you deliberately leave only 1,000 soldiers where the enemy could easily see them? This was not a defensive strategy. It was bait. Perfectly placed bait for a trap, one that a massive army was slowly stepping into, without yet realizing what awaited them ahead. Everything happened almost in the blink of an eye. Under Mstislav's leadership, the Rus army was advancing from two directions. They believed they were slowly cornering the enemy. But at that very moment, the sky seemed to darken with a storm of arrows. Mongol mounted archers from all sides began striking the tightly packed Rus forces without pause. The excitement of the chase turned into a nightmare in an instant. Before the pursuing soldiers could even realize it, they found themselves inside a massive trap, being surrounded from every direction. The shift happened so quickly that many soldiers in the rear of the Rus army had not even reached the battlefield, while the front lines had already begun collapsing into chaos. The first to sense the danger were the Cuman horsemen. They already knew the tactics of the nomadic warriors of the steppe. That familiar sight, a pincer attack closing from both sides, perfect coordination, and rapid encirclement told them exactly what was about to happen. And then the panic began. Thousands of Cuman riders suddenly turned and fled, rushing straight through their own allies as they escaped. As a result, gaps, confusion, and chaos instantly appeared within the Rus ranks. And those very gaps were exactly what the Mongols had been waiting for. The Mongol heavy cavalry surged through those openings like water, bursting through a broken dam. Meanwhile, Prince Mstislav of Chernigov was advancing with his forces. But by the time he arrived, the battle had already sunk into chaos. When he reached the front, he encountered Cumans fleeing in terror. His soldiers had not even realized that the battle had already begun. Within moments, they were caught in a chaotic clash, where forming ranks was impossible, delivering orders was impossible, and understanding the situation was nearly impossible. To deepen the confusion even further, the Mongols used a cover of smoke. Thick smoke slowly covered everything around them. The soldiers of Chernigov seemed suddenly blind. Who was where, and from which direction the enemy was coming, nothing was clear. Soon after, their defensive lines collapsed rapidly. Within the first hour of the battle, Prince Mstislav was killed amid the chaos. Meanwhile, the two wings of the Mongol army had fully completed the encirclement. The scattered Rus forces were now completely surrounded, a river behind them, the enemy ahead, no path to escape, no chance to regroup. Then the Mongols began what they were most known for, methodical destruction. Volley after volley of arrows flew from powerful composite bows, capable of delivering deadly strikes from hundreds of meters away. At the slightest sign of weakness anywhere, cavalry attacks crashed down with lightning speed. Everything was so organized, so disciplined, and so ruthless that it felt as if the limits of battle had long been crossed. This was no longer a battle. It was a massive execution carried out slowly. Still, not everyone was lost. The brave Prince Mstislav, the Bold of Galicia, with his personal guard, showed remarkable courage and managed to break through the Mongol encirclement. He fled west, becoming one of the few surviving witnesses whose memory would forever carry the horror of that day. Behind him, the slaughter continued. Within just a few hours, the forces of Galicia, Volhynia, Kursk, and Chernigov effectively collapsed, losing almost all combat capability. At that moment, standing on a distant hill, and watching everything unfold was the Grand Prince of Kiev, Mstislav III of Kiev. Before his eyes, his allied armies were being destroyed one by one.
Soldiers, the enemy approaches!
Yet, he still had around 10,000 soldiers with him, the largest and most organized force remaining. He quickly established defenses on the hill. When the Mongol army advanced toward them, they realized it would not be easy. For 3 days, Mstislav's soldiers held out on that hill, under siege, surrounded on all sides, no food, no water. The cries of the wounded drifted through the air, while Mongol riders circled like wolves in the distance, patiently waiting for the right moment. Finally, the third day. The date, June 2nd, 1223. The Mongol commanders approached carrying a white flag of truce. They offered a proposal. If they surrendered, Mstislav and his soldiers would be allowed to return home safely. No harm would come to them. The promise was given under oath as a formal pledge.
Brothers, the enemy approaches. Stand firm for our land. We are ready, Commander. Good. Let them come. We will hold this ground. For other people!
And at this very moment, history is about to take a dark turn. At last, that moment finally arrived. Trapped on the besieged hill, exhausted by hunger and thirst, and seeing no way out, the Grand Prince of Kiev, Mstislav III of Kiev, decided to surrender.
Soldiers, the hour of battle is upon us. Look to the horizon. Our enemy awaits. With courage in your hearts and steel in your hands, we will crush them! Fight on!
After losing everything on the battlefield, this was his last hope, the promise given by the enemy.
Soldiers, the enemy falters before us. We fight for our homes, our honor. Forward, let our blades taste victory! Charge!
And the Mongols did keep their word, but in a way that still sends chills down the spine even today. They did not spill royal blood. Literally, they did not break their oath. Instead, Mstislav and his boyars, the noble commanders, were tightly bound hand and foot and laid on the ground. Then a heavy wooden platform was built over their bodies. Then the celebration of victory began. Sitting on that wooden platform above, the Mongol commanders began a feast. Present there were 2 of the greatest pillars of the Mongol military mind, Subutai and Jabi, along with many others. They were eating, drinking, and recounting stories of victory.
We must secure the eastern flank before dawn. The scouts report heavy resistance. We need more men. Our cavalry can break them. I will lead the charge. Then it is decided. Prepare for battle.
And right beneath their feet, the princes of Kiev were slowly losing their breath. Under the crushing weight of the heavy wooden platform and suffocating agony, their lives came to an end. This was revenge. Revenge for the killing of the Mongol envoys, a cold, calculated, and deliberate retaliation. The message was clear and ruthless. The rules of diplomacy can be broken, but a price must be paid. There is something very important to understand here. The Mongols were not blind, savage barbarians, as stories often claim. They were highly organized, calculating, and far-sighted, and they used fear as a weapon. This execution was not merely a display of cruelty. It was psychological warfare, a message designed to reach every prince of Rus, every city, and even distant rulers. The message was very simple. Do not take us lightly and do not dare to break diplomatic rules. And in truth, this strategy worked.
Forward, warriors, for the glory of the Empire! Onward! Keep the line tight! Steady! Do not break formation!
What happened on the banks of the Kalka River spread across the entire region like wildfire. For a generation, the name of the Mongols became a symbol of nightmare in Russian folklore.
The riders approach. We must prepare.
What do they want with us?
Our homes, our lives. Arm yourselves.
For the village, we stand ready!
And the casualties of that battle were horrifying. Different accounts mention different death tolls at the Kalka River. Some say 20,000, others more than 60,000. Some historical records suggest that nearly 90% of the entire army was destroyed that day. Among the soldiers who marched east, only 1 out of every 10 managed to return alive. In total, 9 princes were killed, 3 were captured and executed, while 6 died during the battle and pursuit. Meanwhile, the Mongol army suffered relatively few losses. The outcome was absolutely clear until this was not just a victory, but one of the most uneven and one-sided victories in military history. But the story does not end here, because those who survived carried with them a warning that could change the course of history. Reaching the banks of the Dnieper River, Mstislav the Bold finally stopped, exhausted and devastated.
Soldiers, rise! The day is ours, but the fight is not over. Yes, my lord, we are ready! Forward to the crossing!
The fear of the pursuing enemy was still circling in his mind.
Warriors! The enemy approaches from the river's edge. Steel your hearts! We know you our fresh still.
The situation had become so unstable that he made a decision that clearly revealed both his stress and fear.
Warriors, the time has come. Board the boats. Aye, Commander! Onward to victory and glory!
He ordered nearly every boat along the riverbank to be destroyed. The goal was simple, so the Mongol army could not use them to cross the river and pursue them. But strangely, the Mongols did not pursue them. It seemed they were moving forward with a different plan. Launching swift and sudden attacks on several key southern cities, they made the situation even more unstable. Then suddenly they changed direction and began moving east. Before long, they crossed the vast Volga River. After that, the long journey of return began, the road back toward Mongolia. But this journey was far from easy. Along the way, they faced strong resistance from the Volga Bulgars. At one point, caught in a sudden attack, the Mongols were temporarily defeated, but they quickly regrouped and won again in the next confrontation. Their stability and strategic skill on the battlefield ultimately paid off. Finally, in 1224, they reunited with the main army of Genghis Khan. After the long campaign, it was a significant reunion.
Brothers, the Khan demands readiness. The enemy masses beyond the horizon. Our blades are sharp, Commander. The horde stands firm. Report movement. We ride at dawn. Then prepare the charge. For the Khan!
During this campaign, or perhaps shortly after it, the legendary Mongol general Jebe is believed to have died. However, the exact details of his death are not clearly preserved in history. How exactly he died remains a mystery even today. But the story of another commander did not end here. That person was Subutai, one of the greatest military minds of the Mongol Empire.
Warriors, the time has come to ride forth and claim our destiny. For honor and the eternal blue sky!
In the years that followed, he led campaigns that brought him the distinction of conquering vast territories, more than almost any other general in human history.
Forward, my warriors! Ride down!
One thing is especially important to remember here.
Warriors of the steppe, the winds of destiny to glossary.
The Battle of the Kalka River was not originally a full-scale conquest campaign. At least at the beginning, it was not intended that way.
The crossing is set. We move at dawn. Agreed. The cavalry will secure the far bank. The infantry will follow. Signal the advance.
Instead, it was a massive reconnaissance expedition, a kind of experimental military mission. Subutai and Jebe were closely observing Europe's defensive systems. They wanted to know how strong the kingdoms of this region were, how capable their armies were, and how suitable the terrain was for war. At the same time, they were gathering intelligence, mapping routes and landscapes, and analyzing every important factor for future campaigns. When they returned, they did not carry only memories of war, they brought back remarkably detailed intelligence. They gained clear insight into the political divisions among the Rus principalities, their internal conflicts, the true capability of their armies, and the geographical realities of the entire region. In reality, it was a massive reconnaissance campaign lasting nearly 3 years. Along the way, a massive army of nearly 80,000 soldiers was destroyed. About 14 years later, in 1237, the Mongols returned to the region. But this time, the situation was completely different. This time, they came with full strength, carefully planned strategy, and the advantage of previously gathered intelligence. In this new campaign, Subutai led alongside Batu Khan, the grandson of Genghis Khan. This time, their purpose was no longer reconnaissance. They had come to conquer, and they succeeded in achieving that goal. One important city after another began to fall. Kiev fell, Chernihiv fell, Galicia Volhynia also could not hold out in the end. Gradually, the various Rus principalities became vassal states under the powerful Golden Horde.
Great Khan, I bring tribute from the Western tribes. Your tribute is accepted. The tribes will have our protection. We are honored, Great Khan.
After that, for nearly 240 years, the region passed through a long historical period often referred to by historians as the era of Mongol rule. During this long time, Russian history, political structure, culture, and overall development were deeply influenced. Many things changed permanently, and perhaps the course of history might have been different. If only someone had truly listened to the warning delivered on the banks of the Kalka River. Naturally, the question arises, how did this trap become so terrifyingly successful? When we analyze it, we see that the lessons hidden here are not only about understanding medieval warfare, but also about grasping the deeper realities of military planning, leadership, and strategic thinking. The first point is this: the Mongols understood very well that victory does not begin on the battlefield. It begins long before that. The feigned retreat used to draw the Rus army nearly 200 miles away from their base was not a spontaneous or emotional decision. It was a carefully crafted plan that required extraordinary discipline and precise coordination to execute. Imagine it, around 20,000 cavalry retreating in a controlled manner for 9 straight days. They were neither scattering nor completely disappearing. They kept just enough distance for the enemy to believe that if they advanced a little more, they might finally catch them. Achieving that level of unit coordination in real warfare is truly close to impossible. Secondly, they skillfully turned the psychology of their enemy into a weapon. The Mongol commanders realized that the Rus princes were proud and confident warriors who had just formed an alliance against a common enemy. They also predicted that if the war began with signs of easy success, the Rus army would take it as proof of their own strength. So every Mongol move was designed to gradually increase the confidence of the Rus forces. But at the same time, that confidence exhausted them, isolated them, and ultimately weakened them. Analyzing this level of psychological warfare truly reveals how deeply the plan had been designed.
The enemy is here. We strike from the east. Our cavalry will be ready. Good. Flank them here. What of the reserves? They advance now. We march. We march.
Third, mobility was their greatest strength. Mongol soldiers could advance about 60 to 100 miles in a single day. The main reason was that each warrior had multiple horses. They could switch horses along the journey, keeping the entire army fresh and fast. In contrast, the Rus army had to move along with slow infantry and supply wagons. As a result, trying to keep up with the Mongols quickly exhausted them. During the final battle, when Mongol horse archers suddenly shifted into heavy cavalry assault, they managed it within minutes, because the entire strategy had already been precisely planned.
This pass is our path to victory. The terrain is treacherous. What of supplies? The flank is exposed. We need more men. Agreed. We reinforce and strike at dawn.
The Rus army had no time to adapt to that change. The fourth point, the importance of unified leadership.
Warriors of the Horde! The enemy lies before us. Lead us, Commander! We are ready!
The Mongol army functioned as a well-organized entity directed by Subutai and Jebi. Every unit knew its duty, where to go and when to strike. The entire force was working in coordinated unity. Meanwhile, the Rus army acted like 10 separate forces that sometimes gathered together but quickly collapsed in crisis due to lack of unified command. This is one of the reasons modern military doctrine emphasizes a clear chain of command. The Battle of the Kalka River is a strong example. Fifth, information often determines the outcome of war. The Mongols spent 3 years gathering detailed information about the terrain, politics, and military strength of the Rus region. They knew which routes to take, where the enemy was weak, and how far pressure could push them before they broke. In contrast, the Rus army had almost no reliable intelligence about the enemy. They were fighting an army that was watching their every move, while they themselves advanced almost blindly. Finally, another important factor, patience is also a powerful weapon. Subutai and Jebi spent 9 days preparing a battlefield that ultimately concluded in less than a single day.
Behold, our legions advance across the steppe. The terrain favors our charge, my lord. Then let them ride. Victory will be ours. Their banners fly high. The enemy will falter.
They did not rush or make emotional decisions. Instead, they executed the plan with almost surgical precision. In a world used to quick results today, such patience seems truly rare. The impact of the Kalka River battle did not remain limited to the Rus region. In 1241, Mongol forces defeated armies in two different battlefields at the same time, Poland and Hungary. The battlefields were thousands of miles apart, yet in both cases they used variations of the strategy perfected at the Kalka River.
The heart of their empire lies here. We strike now.
Our left flank will advance through these hills.
The right is secure. We can press the attack.
Their western defenses are weak. We can break them.
Then it is settled.
The campaign was so fast and wide that they reached near Vienna and advanced toward the Adriatic Sea. The situation was becoming extremely dangerous for Western Europe. But ultimately, an unexpected event changed the course of events. The great Khan Ogedei Khan died. This created a succession crisis within the Mongol Empire, and according to tradition, key princes had to return to Mongolia to elect a new great Khan. As a result, the massive invasion heading toward Western Europe temporarily stopped at a strange turn in history.
Warriors, the enemy awaits. Ride with me to victory. The omens are good, my lord. The army is ready. Forward for the Khan and our glory.
Think for a moment how close the Mongol Empire had come to reaching a position where it could establish influence across lands stretching from the Pacific Ocean to the Atlantic Ocean. A continuous dominance from the Pacific Ocean to the Atlantic Ocean, such a possibility has rarely appeared in human history. A Russian chronicler once made a remark about the events at the Kalka River that clearly captured both the terror and the astonishing nature of what had happened. About the Kalka River, he wrote, "We do not know where they came from, and we do not know where they went. It seemed as if God had sent them to punish us for our sins." Those words sound like the voice of a stunned and frightened civilization, one that suddenly faced a force it barely understood before being struck by it. An army that seemed to appear suddenly tear everything apart and then disappear again like a fever dream. Nearly 80,000 soldiers had marched toward the eastern steppe, chasing an army they believed was already weakened or defeated. But in the end, fewer than 8,000 people managed to return home. This was not just a battle. It was a unique example of deception, perfect coordination, and ruthless efficiency, a trap that worked almost flawlessly. Looking back at this event raises a question again and again. How many times in history have we believed we were the hunters, chasing the enemy, only to realize that from the very beginning, we were actually the prey? If you enjoyed this kind of detailed analysis of military history, I have two small requests. First, if you want to hear stories like this regularly, make sure to subscribe. Because even if they are not always found in textbooks, these events are incredibly important for understanding history. And second, let me know in the comments which battles or historical events you would like to see analyzed like this. Should I tell the story of the destruction of Baghdad, or the historic battle where the Mongols faced a major defeat for the first time? Ain Jalut, or the siege of Kaffa, where many historians believe an early form of biological warfare was used, something that may later have been linked to the spread of the Black Death? You decide, because history is not just a list of dates and names. History is really the story of human brilliance, courage, mistakes, and disasters. And within every story lies lessons that remain relevant even today. Let these stories not be lost. Spread the knowledge and share it with others. And we will meet again in the next story.